UK Stretch Fabric fans. I'm going to show you how to draft a beanie hat, this little beanie, to your own measures. So no pattern required, you're going to draw your own pattern. So what you need is some pattern paper, some paper scissors, don't confuse those with fabric shears, we all know how we feel about that, a pen, I'm using a Sharpie, a ruler, and a tape measure to take your own measurements. So I'm going to start by drawing a straight line along my paper, just as a reference point. That's where all my measurements are going to start and finish. Next, I'm going to measure my head. Ideally, what you want to do is measure from the base of your neck to your forehead, because your hat is going to be on from your neck over to your forehead. So if I show you, this is what you all look like from here to here. So this measurement here. My measurement is 21, so I'm going to mark that on the paper. If you prefer a looser fit, add up to an inch here. If you prefer a snug fit, let the stretch of the fabric do the work and don't add anything. I wouldn't add more than an inch, or it's probably just going to fall into your eyes. But you can certainly add a seam allowance. I use a 1/4 inch seam allowance, so you could add a 1/2 inch there. As much as you like, depending on how you like your fit. The aim of this and why we've taken our measurement like this is because it's going to go over our ears to double up as an ear warmer. Cozy. Next thing I'm going to do is measure up from my line 14 inches. And I'm going to draw across the paper. I might measure that a couple of times so that I know I've got a straight line. 14 inches up from the bottom. And I'm going to draw another straight line at 14 inches. Like that. Now, using my paper scissors, I'm going to cut out the rectangle that we've made. Which in my case is 14 by 21 inches. Need to measure my 21 a couple of times to make sure I've got that straight. So same as I did for my 14, measuring from the edge of the paper because I know that's a straight line. Really handy if you don't already have one is a meter rule. Super useful. There we go. Now what I'm going to do is fold my piece of paper in half, making sure I get my corners and my edges all nice and lined up. This is where you find out if you're square or not. And I'm going to fold it in half again. Okay, so we should have a piece of paper that's 4 layers thick. I'm going to measure up from the bottom corner 8 inches. Pop a little mark on there. I'm going to measure up exactly the same on the other corner, and I'm going to pop a mark right in the middle. You can fold it to find it, or you can measure it to find it. My width here is 5 1/4, so I'm looking for 2 1/2 and a bit. Very accurate. That middle line is what I'm going to use to create my shape. So what I need to do now is create a point. So starting from your 8-inch mark, you're going to draw a curve up to that point. And the same on the other side, starting from that line. I can only curve in one direction. It's the way your wrist goes, isn't it? Draw a curve up to that point-ish. There we go. So it should be roughly symmetrical. Don't worry if it's not. Sewing is an inaccurate art. Now I'm going to cut that along the lines that I just drew. I promise you it won't be a snowflake, but it might resemble those little characters holding hands. Exactly the same on both sides. Incidentally, if you want a tighter fit beanie or less of a turn up, or even if you want a looser fit beanie or more of a slouchy fit, increase this 8 inches. So where I measured 8 inches up from the bottom, that's where your turn up lives. That's where your slouchiness lives. This is the curve of the top of your head. Then when you open that out, you should have something that looks like that. So nearly the little men holding hands. Which I don't know, so it's not so curly. So that is your beanie pattern drafted to your measures. To put them together, you're going to fold each piece of fabric onto its neighbour and stitch the curved edges. So stitch the first to the second to the third to the fourth, and lastly the 2 long edges together. So you'll stitch those 2 together, then you'll stitch those 2 together, then you'll stitch those 2 together, and finally the long one. Do that twice for your lining and your outer. Once you've completed your lining and your outer, put them inside each other, right sides together, stitch around the bottom, leave a turning hole so that you can turn them out, and then your beanie will be complete.